Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time joining, welcome. If you're a previous subscriber or you're coming from a previous video on my channel, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be continuing on with the Calico Cats quilt. And today's video is going to be where basically the whole quilt starts coming together. We have done all of our blocks. We have done our sashing point. So these, with the little cornerstones here, are these portions. Then we have our 2.5 by 14 inch pieces of sashing, which are going to be these portions here. And today what we'll be doing is we're going to take all the pieces and we're going to go into my living room. We're going to lay them all out on the floor and set the blocks how we're going to construct them. So today we're going to actually be working on step 8, which it tells you to refer to the diagram. So either this one here or this one, and we are going to lay out the blocks in 4 rows of 5. Then you're going to place a 2.5 by 14 inch rectangle between each block. So that will be these portions right here. Sorry, I'm out of frame. So right there. And then we will be sewing everything. So what we want to do is I will take everything out to the living room floor. You can see my little mini tripod here. I'm going to set that up, take the camera out, and I'm not going to show you as I'm setting it up, but I will set everything up and then we will film it. And that way you just don't have to see me in the video. We don't need all that. So we will see you very soon with the blocks all laid out in order on my living room floor. So we'll see you really soon. Okay, so I know this is a little bit dark and the angle is a little bit weird, but we have all of our blocks laying out, and this will give you an idea of what the quilt will look like when it's completed. I did notice a mistake when I was laying my blocks out, and you can see that here along the bottom row, on my left facing cats, I have the top where the flying geese are. But if you notice right up here on my right facing block, I also have the flying geese along the top. And on the right facing blocks, let me find where my booklet went to. I think I took it into the other room. But on one of them, I believe it was the right facing block. On this one, the flying geese were supposed to be along the bottom. I'm not going to go and take all those blocks apart. I'm going to just leave it the way it is because I like the way it looks. Quilting is your own interpretation, so I'm just going to leave it. I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up the tripod, and I'm going to try to get a complete overhead shot for you. Our big next step is we're going to start sewing the top row. And you can see on these sections, that's where our 2.5 by 14 inch rectangle sashing is. So you're going to start all the way up here at the top. You're going to take the first one and sew it to the sashing. Then you're going to take the second one, sew it to the sashing. The third one, sew it to the sashing, so on. And then you'll sew all those blocks together. Then if you notice, so we'll go down here on the bottom. If you notice this sashing piece right here, you'll notice that it looks a lot smaller. So let me try to get my other finger here in the frame. So you'll see where one piece is here and one piece is here. You'll notice that it looks smaller. And the reason why that is that when you sew those pieces, it's going to kind of stretch apart, and I'll show you that while we're sewing that. And that's where you want to really match your seam. So where this cornerstone block is right here, you're going to want to make sure that you match up to this portion of this block. So the cornerstones, so like this green cornerstone here, sorry I'm a little shaky, you're going to match up to this sashing when you sew it. So you're going to want to pin your seams and match your seams when you're sewing those. And as we get to that, I will show you that. I'm going to pause the camera for a moment, and I'm going to try to get a little more of an overhead shot for you so you can see this. Give me just a moment. Okay, so I might be a little bit wobbly here, and I apologize for that. But you're able to get a more of an overhead shot. So those are your first couple rows, and then your rows down here. So it's going to be 5 blocks across by 4 rows down. Okay, and I'm really sorry for this camera angle. I do not have a wall where I'm able to attach them to. So my living room floor kind of takes the place of my layout wall. And again, we'll go back up here to the top so you can see all that. And we are going to start assembling. And when I get the top assembled, I will come back and show you that all, and we will see the next step. We'll see you all very soon. Okay, we are back in the sewing room, and I have all the blocks stacked according to the rows. So you're going to have, let me go to the page, you're going to have the 5 rows across, or 5 blocks across by 4 down. And what I did is I started at this block, and I picked up the block, the sash piece, the block, the next sash piece, and so on. And then I separated the rows by the centerpiece sashing. So I have 1, 2, there's the sashing, 3, then the sashing, and 4. And you can see once I pick up the first block, I'm going to have my piece of sashing, and I will take it to the machine and I will sew that piece, and then I will move on to, I'll set this piece aside, then I'll pick up this block and the next piece of sashing and sew it until I get down to the portion of this sashing. And when I get down to that portion, I'm going to take each of the blocks that I have sewn with this portion of the sash, and then I will sew each one of those together. And once each one of those 5 blocks is sewn together, that is when I'm going to take this piece of the sash with the little cornerstones, and I'm going to pin. When I get to that portion, I will show you how I pin those together. So I'm going to sew the first row together, and I will show you what each block looks like. And once I get that back, get that part finished, I will be right back. Okay, so I have the very first block sewn, and you're going to want to press your seam towards the inner rectangle. So you'll do that with each block you sew. And I failed again to plug in my little iron here ahead of time, so I'm going to do that real quick. And I'm going to first do it this way. And you will have to, when you sew your piece, you're going to match your top up, and you're going to have to kind of like pull the quilt block a little bit because to get it to match at the bottom. And it was just probably about 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch I had to do that. And it's because your blocks will shrink a little bit down if you've left them sitting for a little bit. After pressing them, they kind of cool down a little bit. But that's been my experience anyway. But you do have to kind of like pull it down a little bit. I kind of think that makes sense. If you're familiar with quilting, if you let your blocks sit a little bit, they kind of relax a little bit more. And I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I think you'll understand. Okay, so my iron is heating up, and I'm just going to press my seam first. Push this over just a little bit so we can a little more space here. And then I'm going to just flip it over and press. Okay. And that is our first block with the sashing. Okay. And I'm gonna try to figure out a way that I don't have to have my iron where I have it. So I have it plugged in up here at the side, and I'm always worried that I'm gonna put the hot iron on my cord. So I need to figure out another way to put my iron. And you can see the tip of Luna's tail's really close there. She's really good about not getting close to it, but she's up on her little perch up above. Okay, so our next step is we're going to take the next block, and I first previously told you to take each block and sew your piece to it, but you don't have to do it that way. You can just sew, take your first block, sew the piece to it, take your next block, turn it over, and sew it to it. And that's going to be the way I do it. It's just going to flow easier for me. But if you want to do it by each block with your sash, by all means do it how you feel comfortable. So I'm going to continue on with this first row, which is here. And when that is completed, I will be back to show you that. Okay, so we have block 2 added. And I went ahead and pressed the seam to the rectangle, the sashing rectangle. We're going to continue on. I'm going to sew the next piece of sashing. And what I went ahead and did is I did move my iron. I moved the cord down to the front of my desk, and I just have the iron here so it won't be all in the way of the iron. I was really nervous that I was going to burn it. I'm going to press this just a little bit here. And I also did move my cutting mat off the table for now. I will not be using it right at this moment, so I went ahead and moved that just to make a little additional room. And I have a silicone baking mat underneath my wool pressing mat, and that just is another thing to protect the table underneath of it. It's a laminated tabletop, but I don't know how the heat will react to that with the wool pressing mat. So I just keep a silicone baking mat underneath of it, and it just kind of adds another layer of insulation kind of like to the table and prevents it from any damage. So I'm just matching up my next piece. I'm going to take it to the machine and sew it, and I will be back again. Okay, so I have my third block assembled, and so we have our first two and then our third one, and again we're going to sew another piece of sashing onto it, and I'm going to go ahead and continue sewing the quilt. So after this part, I will finish these blocks. Then we will add this part of the sashing with the cornerstones in it, these ones. And once I get that piece sewn, I will lay it out on the floor and take a picture of it and include. That way you guys can see that. And well, actually, I'll film it so you guys can see that. And then we will, well, depending on when I get this finished, I will it'll either be a picture or a video clip of the piece sewn to it. But I will show you how we sew this to this portion. I mentioned that you do kind of have to stretch your pieces so they will fit. You can probably, this one goes this way. Okay, so we're going to, you can see where it kind of matches up. Oh, I'm not even in frame, sorry about that. So we're going to sew it like so, and once I get this portion finished, I'm not going to keep coming back block after block to show you. I will just keep assembling the quilt, and then at that point, once the quilt, that portion of the quilt top is finished, I will come back and show you how that is. And then the next video after that's going to be where we sew our sashing together, and then we will show you how that sashing all gets added to the quilt, and we will go from there. So I will see you in a few seconds, and we will get to how that sashing is added, and we will see you in a few. Okay, so we have sewn all 5 of our first row of blocks together. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the sashing strip, and I'm going to start at this part down here, the very last part, and I'm going to put the largest portion of fabric on the bottom, and I'm going to lay that down. And I have went ahead and pressed all my seams. I had told you that we press towards the inner, the rectangle, and when we pressed our sashing strips, we pressed them towards the rectangle also. And that is because what's going to happen is our seams are going to become nested. So when we have this laid over, our seams where we line them up are going to become nested and are going to fit together perfectly. Okay? I would highly recommend to pin where your seams are for the first block, and that is just so you know. Let me get this laid out a little here. I'm going to grab some of my pins. I really need to invest in some of the large, like the flower head pins, so I can grip them a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to nest our seams together, and we want to pin those together. And you can do it for each one if you want as you progress down, or as you sew them, you can nest them. I'm thinking I'm going to take the time to go ahead and pin them all now. And the reason why is because as you're sewing, you will have to do a little, maybe a little stretch, maybe not. This seems to be laying together really nicely. Okay, I'm going to clip these little. Sometimes the little threads bother people, sometimes they don't. Being that I am working with a white fabric, I'm going to try to clip excess threads just so they don't show through the white as much. On a darker fabric, you don't really have to worry too much about that. And I'm just going to pin all these together to make sure they nest good. Today is actually a beautiful day outside. It's been so gray and gloomy and windy here in New Mexico, and today is just absolutely beautiful. It is still a little chilly, but we are, for my area, I live near Albuquerque in a little kind of subdivision off of Albuquerque or out of Albuquerque. And not really a subdivision, but it's just another small town off of Albuquerque. And we are actually going to have our first 70-degree day this week, I think. Well, actually next week, I'm sorry. So I'm really excited about that. I'm tired of the cold. But we are going to have one kind of a cold snap, one just here in the next day or two. And I think they are saying that that will be the last one until the or I got off track there, sorry. It'll be the last kind of like cold snap until spring really sets in. So I'm really happy about that. Almost time for flip-flop weather. I'm one of those types of people that I hate wearing shoes. So in the winter, I hate it. 95% of the time, I am without shoes. I either just wear socks or go barefoot in the house. Okay, so now I have all of these cornerstones pinned together. I'm going to take it to the machine and I will be right back. I'm really sorry. I just realized part of that time when I was pinning that I may have been out of frame. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to go sew it and I will be right back. Okay, so I have the first row of blocks completed. I have the corner stones lined up with the vertical sashing, and this is our first row. I'll show you kind of block by block so you can see it. I will include a photo that you can see this. I'm not going to take the camera back down and lay it all back out and everything, but this will just give you an idea of how it is turning out. So this is our first block. And you can see how I told you when we had it all laying out on the living room floor, how this piece of sashing here looked like it was too short. But when you put your seams together and you sew it, they all tend to magically match up. So there's our second block. And the floral cornerstone. The third block. I really like this one. I like the way this one turned out. I don't know why, but I like the way it all kind of like pops. So that one's really cute. And then we got this one. And the last block of the row, the fifth block, my white ghost cat, I guess you can call it. How it kind of just kind of blends in with the background. But I really like it because you can kind of see, now you can see in this one that it's a white tone-on-tone fabric that I used for my background. It's starting to pop out a little bit more. And I really like how it looks. So from this point, I am just going to continue sewing all the blocks together and assembling the quilt top. I'm not going to show you any more at this point. I will come back when I have all of these sewn together and all 4 of the rows together, because then the next video will be doing our white inner border, which is all along here. And I am not sure what my outer border is going to be yet. I think I may be using this solid green color, and I have quite a bit of that fabric left. And then I will press the whole quilt and assemble my layers. And when that part comes, the actual quilting is just going to be something really, really fun. And I'm not going to get more into it until that, because I want it to be, I want you guys to have a little bit of anticipation for that, because I'm just so excited. And we will see you all soon. And I hope you have enjoyed the videos up until this point, and that you continue liking them until we get to the final assembly of the quilt and quilting it. So we'll see you all soon. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.